Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Sports. Lood de Jager's Springbok year is officially over after it has been confirmed that the Springbok lock has been issued a 4-match ban, which can be brought down to 3 matches if he goes through tackle school, but we'll definitely see him miss out on the remainder of the Springbok games for the year after finding his, the end of the conclusion of the disciplinary hearing, which was finalized today. And it's a big blow for the Boks, especially given the fact that we had seen the return of Lood de Jager this year. And I think that we had started to see the Lood de Jager of old, and he's really starting to add a lot to the Boks. And I think we kind of sort of saw what we missed in 2023 when obviously Sean Klein sort of stepped in. And this year we've just had an absolute plethora of rocks, but we're going to have to cope without him, which means that somebody like a Ruan Nokia is about to become more important than ever as he continues to sort of rise. But before we get into it, please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. So today, Lood de Jager appeared in an independent disciplinary committee this afternoon via video link after receiving a red card for an act of foul play contrary to law 9.16. Which was basically going into tackle without any attempt to wrap, basically. So that was one of that was what the law inverted commas that he has infringed, and the law says as follows: it says a player must not charge or knock down an opponent carrying the ball without attempting to grasp the player. So that's the whole idea, that it is the wrapping, for example. Now, a lot of people have been talking about the fact that was his arm, moved away from the arm of Thomas Ramos, for example. Was he prevented in making a wrap? The right arm definitely made a wrap. The left arm, maybe not so much. And the Springboks basically came out and said that they understand the red card, that they agree that it's a red card. And as a result, I don't think we're going to see any sort of challenge with this. Jan Vessels, there's talks about potential legal proceedings, for example, and potentially taking the URC and the disciplinary further. I don't think we're going to see an appeal with the Lood de Jager case. So he was in front of a committee that was chaired by Jennifer Donovan from Ireland and former referees Val Toma from Romania and Donal Courtney, also from Ireland. The committee has upheld the red card issued to the red card by applying the World Rugby sanctioning provisions. They've determined a mid-range entry of 6 weeks was appropriate. There was mitigating factors applied by the committee, reducing the 6-week entry point by 2 weeks, and the final sanction was therefore 4 matches. So it's a bit of a graphic. It's a bit small to sort of show, but this is basically it. It kind of goes through the sort of the step-by-step process on how to get to the final point over there. So basically, it is a mid-entry point. So a low entry point is 2 matches. A mid-entry point is 6 matches. The top end is 10+ matches, which is what Jan Wessels is currently serving. In terms of the entry point, there was head contact. They deemed that it was reckless, and they said that the player was vulnerable. Now, ironically, I think the whole player being vulnerable is actually almost mitigating circumstances, because there's a massive drop in height from Thomas Ramos, who goes down to his knees, even Lood de Jager himself. But now sort of the arguments also now is kind of diving on the player. The only sort of parts that wasn't added to the entry point was the intention, and that was intentional, and that the player was injured, which I still really don't believe should factor into it. I really don't understand how in this day and age we still talk about player injuries going into a sanction, because you can have the most legal tackler in the world and do somebody's cruciate ligament, concuss them and end their career, and you could have a really, really horrible and very illegal tackle that can also not injure players. So I still very vehemently disagree with the fact that the player being injured is even a factor. Anyway, in terms of the mitigation, basically the good record came into it. There was remorse / an apology, as well as good conduct. So those 3 things all added into the mitigation, which was 2 weeks. As a result, it going from 6 matches down to 4 weeks. There was no aggravating factors, which was a repeat offender, a need for a deterrent, or any other factors. So there are no aggravating factors about it. He's not somebody who's been doing this often, for example. He's got a clean record. Therefore, the final sanction is 4 matches, which for him are Italy versus South Africa this weekend, Ireland versus South Africa, Wales versus South Africa, and then Wild Knights versus the Toshiba Brave Lupus on the 14th of December when the Japanese League kicks off. However, the last match will be substituted if player successfully completes the HSP coaching intervention. So it's the whole sort of high basic tackle school, what we've come to know. So if he does complete tackle school, then he'll be down to 3 weeks. But regardless of that, it will be the rest of the Springbok tour. Now, it's a very frustrating ban, not so much from whether we agree or not, but I think that there's a couple of things that people have got quite an issue with. First of all, the fact that a lot of people are talking about how do you have two Irish affiliated people when he is set to play Ireland in the next few games. Now, I don't think that there's any sort of, we should be going as far as to say that there's going to be bias by the two Irish representatives on the disciplinary hearing. But you do sort of sometimes wonder about the tact or the lack thereof tact. You've got a Six Nations organization. You've got so many different resources. You're bringing somebody from Romania. Why open yourself up to that scrutiny? Why you could have gone and gotten a Scottish panel, an English panel. We're not playing either of those nations. You could have filled them up with that, with the Romanians, with the Georgian, for example. But the problem is that you've once again created a conversation. You've created a narrative by naming two Irish representatives on the panel when the Boks are set to play against Ireland in what is the biggest match for the remaining of the year. And I don't think that, as I said, we don't want to sit there and start calling people biased, but it just opens them up for that possible scrutiny. And that's where you I just think that it continues to get it so wrong. If you had two Scottish representatives, for example, a Romanian or a Georgian, for example, that wouldn't have even entered the conversation, but it is entering the conversation. The one thing I think it will show is it'll in terms of the Boks is I think it's going to galvanize them. They've lost Andrew Vessels now for the tour. They've lost Lood de Jager, and that's not so much playing, in terms of trying to achieve justice in terms of like the Lood de Jager, but there is going to be an incentive of how much he's going to be gutted by letting the team down, and the team will be galvanized by that, I reckon, and try and sort of really up the ante with regards to trying to cope and show that they can respond to these sort of adverse situations. And we did see the response to adversity this past weekend being pretty impressive. But it's frustrating because I think that he was just playing so well, and I think that we were starting to see the best of him. I would have really liked to have seen him have a real good go at Ireland, but it does obviously reduce us back down to a player. We've already lost Andrew Vessels this tour. We've now lost Lood de Jager. I don't foresee a call-up coming. You've still got John Klein, Franco Marsad, Eamon Etzebeth, Ruan Okia, Archis Name, and you've still got 5 locks in the mix. And you can also go PSF the Toy if you need to, Ben Jason Dixon. So I don't think we will see a call-up. But we have seen a 36-man group going down now to 34 men, and we're still not calling them up, which means I think it's quite a good indication of kind of where we are as a squad. What do you think of the ban itself? Is it fair? Let me know down in the comments below. Smash a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steve. I'll chat to you soon.